It was a normal evening in a crowded neighborhood where people lived close to each other and everyday life followed the same routine. Small shops were closing, children were playing in the streets, and the smell of fresh food filled the air. Amir walked slowly toward his home after finishing another long day at the repair shop. His hands were covered in grease, and his shoulders felt heavy from work, but his mind felt even heavier. Since the birth of his daughter 2 weeks earlier, life had changed completely. Sleep had become rare, expenses had increased, and responsibility now felt larger than he had ever imagined. He loved his family deeply, yet he felt trapped between expectations and exhaustion. When Amir entered the house, he saw Sana sitting quietly near the window, gently rocking their newborn baby. The room was dim and the soft light made her look pale and tired. Motherhood had not been easy for her. She barely slept, and the constant crying of the baby made her anxious. She smiled weakly when Amir came in, but he noticed the sadness behind her eyes. She asked him how his day was, and he gave the same answer he always gave, just work, nothing else. He did not ask about her day, not because he didn't care, but because he felt too tired to listen. Slowly, a silent distance had started growing between them. Sana tried to talk about how overwhelmed she felt. She told him she was scared of making mistakes with the baby and wished he could spend more time at home. Amir nodded but kept checking his phone, thinking about unpaid bills and customers waiting for repairs. In his mind, working harder was the only solution. He believed that once money problems were solved, everything else would automatically become better. What he did not understand was that Sana needed emotional support more than financial promises. Later that evening, Amir received a message from his old friend Bilal, inviting him to spend a night out with some friends. They planned to sit together, eat, and forget stress for a few hours. Amir hesitated. He knew Sana was struggling, but another part of him felt desperate for a break. He convinced himself that one night away would help him relax and return with a better mood. When Sana asked where he was going, he avoided the truth and simply said he had extra work at the shop and might return late. She looked disappointed but said nothing. Her silence should have warned him, but he ignored it. As Amir left the house, he heard the baby crying behind him. For a moment he almost turned back. Something inside him felt uneasy, but he pushed the feeling away and continued walking. That night he laughed with friends, ate good food, and tried to forget his worries. Everyone joked about married life and responsibilities, and Amir forced himself to smile. Yet deep inside he felt strange guilt. He checked his phone several times but saw no messages from Sana. Instead of calling her, he convinced himself she was probably asleep. Meanwhile, back at home, Sana sat alone with the crying baby. The night felt long and lonely. Every sound in the house made her feel more anxious. She remembered how different life used to be before the baby, when Amir would sit beside her and talk for hours. Now she felt invisible, as if her struggles were unnoticed. She wasn't angry about one night. She was hurt because it felt like proof that she was facing everything alone. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she held the baby close, whispering soft words to calm both herself and her child. Hours passed slowly. Exhaustion mixed with emotional pain, and Sana began thinking deeply about her future. She wondered if this loneliness would continue forever. She loved Amir, but she feared raising a child in an environment where she felt unsupported. Her thoughts were not sudden or dramatic. They were the result of many small moments of neglect that had quietly built up over time. That night, something inside her changed. She realized she needed peace, stability, and emotional safety for herself and her newborn. Early the next morning, Amir finally returned home, expecting everything to be normal. He imagined Sana might be slightly upset, but he believed a simple apology would fix things. However, the moment he opened the door, an uncomfortable silence surrounded him. The house felt different, too quiet, too still. The baby's crib stood empty, and some drawers were open. Clothes were missing, and the air felt cold, as if warmth had been taken away. Confusion quickly turned into fear. Amir walked from room to room calling Sana's name, hoping she would answer from somewhere inside the house. But there was nothing. No sound, no movement, only silence. His heartbeat grew faster as reality slowly revealed itself. On the table lay a small folded paper, placed carefully where he could not miss it. At that moment he understood that something serious had happened. The truth struck him with painful force. After secretly spending a night away, when he came home, nothing was left. His wife was gone, and the newborn was nowhere to be found. The peaceful life he believed was secure had disappeared overnight. Standing alone in the empty house, Amir realized that sometimes the biggest turning points in life begin with small choices that seem harmless at the time. That morning marked the beginning of a lesson he would never forget. A lesson about love, responsibility, and the cost of not being present when someone needs you the most. Amir stood frozen in the middle of the empty room, still holding the small letter in his trembling hands. The silence around him felt louder than any noise he had ever heard. Only a few hours earlier he had been laughing with friends, believing life was normal. Now the house that once felt warm and alive looked unfamiliar and cold. The baby's blanket lay folded on the sofa, and the tiny toys near the crib reminded him of how quickly everything had changed. His heart raced as fear slowly replaced confusion. He read the letter again, hoping he had misunderstood something, but the words remained painfully clear. Sanaa had written honestly about her feelings. She explained how lonely she had felt since the baby's birth, how every night felt endless while she cared for the child alone. She wrote that she did not hate Amir, but she felt invisible in her own home. She needed emotional support, someone to sit beside her, to listen, and to share the responsibility. The night Amir chose to stay away broke something inside her. She realized she could not continue living with constant disappointment. She wrote that she was leaving to find peace and stability for herself and their daughter, and she hoped someday Amir would understand why. Amir dropped onto the chair, unable to breathe properly. Regret rushed through him like a storm. He immediately grabbed his phone and called Sanaa again and again, but her phone remained switched off. Each failed call made his panic grow stronger. He rushed outside and looked around the neighborhood as if she might suddenly appear walking down the street. Neighbors noticed his worried face, but he could barely explain what had happened. Without wasting time, Amir went to Sanaa's parents' house. During the entire journey, his mind repeated the same thought. Maybe she had just gone there to calm down. Maybe everything could still be fixed. When he arrived, he knocked urgently on the door. Sanaa's mother opened it with surprise, but her expression quickly turned serious when she saw his condition. Amir asked about Sanaa and the baby, his voice shaking. But her parents had not seen or heard from her. Their concern grew and questions filled the air, questions Amir could not answer without feeling ashamed. The reality that no one knew where Sanaa was made Amir feel helpless. He began searching everywhere he could think of. He visited nearby hospitals, worried that something bad might have happened during travel. He checked bus stations and asked workers if they remembered seeing a young mother carrying a newborn. Every stranger's face looked hopeful for a moment, then disappointing when they shook their heads. Hours turned into days and Amir barely slept or ate. His only goal was to find his family. At night, when he returned to the empty house, guilt surrounded him. He noticed details he had ignored before. The unfinished baby clothes Sanaa had been sewing, medicine bottles placed carefully near the bed, and a notebook where she had written feeding schedules for the baby. These small signs showed how much effort she had been putting into motherhood while he focused only on work. He began to understand that Sanaa had not left suddenly. Her pain had been growing quietly for a long time. Amir also started remembering their recent conversations more clearly. He recalled moments when Sanaa tried to talk but he answered without listening. He remembered how she asked him to hold the baby so she could rest, and he said he was too tired after work. At the time, those moments felt small and unimportant, but now they appeared like pieces of a larger mistake. He realized love is not only about big sacrifices, it is also about small acts of care every day. Friends and relatives tried to comfort him, but their words could not reduce his regret. Some blamed Sanaa for leaving without telling anyone, while others quietly suggested Amir should have been more supportive. Hearing different opinions confused him, but deep inside he knew the truth. He had not been a bad person, but he had been emotionally absent when his family needed him most. Weeks passed and Amir's search became more desperate. He posted messages online, contacted distant relatives, and even visited places Sanaa once mentioned wanting to see. Every time his phone rang, hope filled his heart, only to disappear when it was not her. The waiting became the hardest part. Not knowing whether she was safe or struggling somewhere made him restless. One evening, while sitting alone in the house, Amir looked at a photo taken just after their daughter was born. Sanaa was smiling tiredly while holding the baby, and Amir stood proudly beside them. He realized that happiness had been there, but he had taken it for granted. Tears filled his eyes as he understood how fragile relationships can be. A single night had not destroyed everything by itself, it had simply revealed cracks that had already formed. As days turned into weeks, Amir began to change slowly. The search for Sanaa was no longer only about finding her location. It became a journey of understanding himself. He started questioning his priorities and thinking deeply about what truly mattered. Work, money, and social time suddenly felt meaningless compared to the warmth of family he had lost. Though he still had no answers, Amir refused to give up hope. Every morning he woke up believing he might finally hear her voice. Every night he prayed for her safety and promised himself that if he ever got another chance, he would never ignore the emotional needs of the people he loved. The painful silence of the house became his greatest teacher, reminding him daily that sometimes people do not leave because of one big mistake, but because of many small moments when they felt unseen and unheard. Days slowly turned into months, and Amir's life changed in ways he never expected. The busy man who once rushed between work and social gatherings now spent most of his time alone. The house remained quiet, and every corner reminded him of Sanaa and their daughter. At first, the silence felt unbearable, but gradually it forced him to face something he had avoided for years: himself. Without distractions, without laughter from friends, and without the comforting presence of family, Amir began to think deeply about his actions and the kind of husband and father he had truly been. Every morning he woke up early not because he had to, but because sleep no longer came easily. He often sat near the empty crib, staring at it for long periods. He imagined how much his daughter must have grown by now. Was she smiling? Could she recognize her mother's voice? These thoughts filled his heart with both love and pain. He realized he had missed important moments that would never return. The weight of regret stayed with him constantly, but instead of running away from it, he slowly began to accept it as a lesson. One afternoon, while cleaning the house, Amir found a small notebook that belonged to Sanaa. Inside were simple notes about the baby, feeding times, doctor appointments, and small reminders written in careful handwriting. Between those notes were personal thoughts Sanaa had written during late nights when she could not sleep. She had written about feeling scared, tired, and lonely after becoming a mother. She had hoped Amir would notice her struggle without needing to explain everything. Reading those words broke something inside him. For the first time, he truly understood the emotional pain she had been carrying silently. Amir realized he had always believed responsibility meant earning money and paying bills. He had never learned that emotional presence was just as important. He remembered how his own father had been distant while growing up, always working and rarely expressing feelings. Without realizing it, Amir had repeated the same pattern. This understanding did not excuse his behavior, but it helped him see where his mistakes came from. Change, he understood, required effort and honesty. Determined to become better, Amir decided to rebuild himself step by step. He started by changing his daily routine. Instead of staying late at work unnecessarily, he organized his time carefully. He learned to cook simple meals and keep the house clean, tasks Sanaa had managed alone before. Doing these small things helped him appreciate the effort she had made every day without recognition. One evening, while passing by a community center, Amir noticed a poster about parenting and family support classes. At first, he felt embarrassed to join. He worried people might judge him or ask questions he could not answer. But after standing outside for several minutes, he gathered courage and went inside. The classes opened his eyes to realities he had never considered. Experts spoke about postpartum stress, emotional exhaustion, and how new mothers often feel isolated even when surrounded by family. Listening to other parents share their struggles made Amir realize he was not alone, but it also showed him how much he had failed to understand Sanaa's experience. He began attending regularly, asking questions and learning how to support a partner emotionally. He learned the importance of listening without interrupting, offering comfort without trying to immediately solve problems, and sharing responsibilities equally. Each lesson felt like discovering a new language, the language of care and empathy he had never properly learned before. Outside the classes, Amir also tried to become a kinder person in everyday life. He helped neighbors with small repairs without expecting payment. He volunteered at a local charity that supported families in need. Watching struggling parents working together to raise their children touched him deeply. He saw fathers carrying babies, cooking meals, and comforting their partners, and he realized how different things could have been if he had understood these responsibilities earlier. Despite his progress, nights were still difficult. Loneliness often returned, bringing memories of laughter, shared meals, and dreams they once had together. Sometimes he blamed himself harshly, wondering if he deserved forgiveness at all. During those moments he began writing letters to Sanaa. He had no address to send them, but writing allowed him to express feelings he had never spoken before. In those letters he apologized honestly, described the changes he was making, and shared how much he missed watching their daughter grow. Writing became his way of healing and holding on to hope. Slowly people around him noticed the change. Friends who once knew him as careless and distracted now saw a calmer, more thoughtful man. Even at work, customers appreciated his patience and kindness. But Amir did not change to impress others. He changed because he finally understood the value of relationships. He realized that love is not proven by words or promises alone but by consistent actions. One rainy evening, as he sat by the window watching water fall from the sky, Amir held a tiny baby sock he had found months earlier. He imagined his daughter wearing it and felt a quiet determination grow inside him. He could not change the past, but he could prepare himself for the future. If life ever gave him another chance to be a husband and father, he wanted to be ready, not just financially but emotionally and mentally. For the first time since Sanaa left, Amir felt a small sense of peace. The pain had not disappeared, but it had transformed into motivation. He understood that sometimes losing everything forces a person to rebuild from the inside. And although he still did not know where Sanaa and his daughter were, he believed that becoming a better man was the only path that might one day lead them back to him. Nearly a year had passed since the morning Amir walked into an empty house and realized his family was gone. Time had moved forward, but the memory of that day remained clear in his mind. Life had become quieter and more disciplined for him. He worked regularly, attended family support meetings, and continued volunteering at the community center. The change in him was not sudden or dramatic. It happened slowly through daily effort and self-reflection. Even though he had learned to live with the silence, a part of his heart still waited every day for news about Sanaa and his daughter. One afternoon, while Amir was repairing a customer's motorbike, his phone rang unexpectedly. The number was unfamiliar. Normally he would ignore unknown calls during work, but something inside him pushed him to answer. When he said hello, there was a brief silence on the other side. Then he heard a soft voice he recognized immediately. It was Sanaa. For a moment he could not speak. His hands began to shake and his heart beat so loudly he could barely hear her words. Sanaa spoke calmly but carefully. She told him she and the baby were safe. She explained that after leaving, she had stayed with a distant relative in another city where she could recover emotionally and focus on raising their daughter peacefully. She admitted that leaving had been one of the hardest decisions of her life, but at that time she felt it was the only way to protect her mental and emotional health. She had needed distance to think clearly and regain confidence as a mother. Amir listened quietly, afraid that if he interrupted, the moment might disappear. He apologized sincerely, not with dramatic promises but with honest words. He told her about the changes he had made, the classes he attended, and how much he had learned about understanding emotions and sharing responsibilities. He did not ask her to come back immediately. Instead, he simply said he hoped for a chance to meet and talk face to face whenever she felt ready. After a short pause, Sanaa agreed to meet him in a public park the following weekend. The days leading to the meeting felt longer than any time Amir had experienced before. He felt nervous, hopeful, and scared all at once. He wondered how much his daughter had grown and whether she would accept him as a stranger or recognize him somehow. He also worried whether Sanaa truly believed he had changed. On the day of the meeting, Amir arrived early at the park. Families walked around, children played, and the peaceful environment made his emotions even stronger. Every passing minute felt heavy. Finally, he saw Sanaa walking slowly toward the bench, holding a small child in her arms. His breath stopped for a moment. Their daughter, now almost a year old, looked curious and alert, her tiny hands moving as she observed everything around her. Amir did not rush forward. He stood respectfully, giving Sanaa space to feel comfortable. When their eyes met, both of them felt a mix of memories and emotions. Sanaa noticed that Amir looked different, calmer, humbler, and more thoughtful. The confidence he once carried had been replaced with quiet sincerity. He greeted her gently and then looked at his daughter with tears forming in his eyes. Sanaa allowed him to sit beside them. At first, the conversation felt awkward, filled with pauses and careful words. They spoke about simple things, the baby's habits, her first smile, and how she had started trying to walk. Amir listened closely, asking questions and showing genuine interest. Slowly, the tension began to soften. Sanaa shared how difficult the past year had been but also how it helped her grow stronger and more independent. Amir apologized again, this time explaining not only that he was sorry but also what he had understood from his mistakes. He admitted he had confused providing money with providing love and presence. He told her he had learned that partnership means supporting each other emotionally, especially during difficult times. His honesty touched Sanaa because she could see he was not trying to defend himself or blame circumstances. Forgiveness did not come instantly. Sanaa made it clear that trust could not be rebuilt in a single conversation. She needed time to believe that the change was real and lasting. Amir accepted this without argument. For him, simply seeing them safe and being allowed to sit beside them felt like a gift. As the afternoon passed, Sanaa carefully placed their daughter in Amir's arms. It was the first time he had held her in many months. The child looked at him with curious eyes before smiling slightly. That small moment filled him with overwhelming emotion. He realized how deeply he had missed these simple experiences. The warmth of a child, the feeling of family. They agreed to move forward slowly. Instead of immediately returning to their old life, they decided to attend counseling together and rebuild their relationship step by step. They planned regular meetings so Amir could spend time with his daughter and gradually become part of her daily life again. Both understood that real healing takes patience, honesty, and consistent effort. As the sun began to set, Amir walked away from the park feeling something he had not felt in a long time: hope. The past could not be erased, but the future was no longer empty. He understood that second chances are rare and fragile, and they must be protected through actions, not promises. That evening, for the first time in a year, Amir returned home with a peaceful heart. The house was still quiet, but it no longer felt lifeless. He knew rebuilding trust would take time, but he was ready for the journey. Losing everything had taught him the true meaning of love: being present, listening carefully, and valuing the people who stand beside you every day. And as he looked toward the future, he promised himself that if life had given him another chance, he would never again take it for granted.